I got a question for you all. How would you like me to do an MRE unboxing at some point on this channel? I got a huge case of them, 12. I got a case of 12. It was really cheap actually, $80, which all things considered, that comes down to less than $8 a meal. Which is really good. I mean, for what you get, like you definitely get like $8 of value off of one of these MREs. This one's already opened. The bag is open, but the interior packaging is not opened. Ooh, and interestingly enough, if you can see there, I don't know if you can see, this thing has sour Skittles in it. Now, I'm not a big fan of sour Skittles. I do like regular Skittles. Regular Skittles are good, but sour Skittles do a number on my teeth and mouth. So I had a friend who was in the military, and he said that a good portion, like a sour Skittles from an MRE, could go for as much as $20 in the Marine Corps. So he was my clarinet teacher when I was in elementary school. Um, he worked in the Army. I think he was in the National Guard, and apparently in the field, these Skittles were worth like $20. You could sell them to people who had a sweet tooth. If it were me, I'd probably sell the sour Skittles because I'm not a big fan of sour Skittles, like I just told you. This is menu number 9, beef stew, ragout de boeuf. Here's a little fun tidbit. Do you know why in English we call meat from a cow beef? In other languages, they call cow meat cow meat. Like in Japanese, they call it ushiniku, which means cow meat. Like it's cow and cow meat. Cow meat comes from cows. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people know this, but I'm just going to say it anyways. The reason why English has different words for cows and beef is that after the Norman invasion of Brittany, or not Brittany, Brittany's in France. After the Norman invasion of Britain, Great Britain, the island of Great Britain, the upper class spoke French, and the peasants spoke English. And the peasants, the people eating most of the meat, were French, and they called the meat beef. They ate cow, they called it beef. And so what happened is English inherited the stratification of classes. So the reason why we call cow meat beef is because it's beef in French and it's cow in Anglo-Saxon, and that is a legacy of nobility. So I think that's pretty cool. Also, the same with deer and veal, and the same with pig and pork. I think that's interesting, though. Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Do you know that the big stink? So back in I was told that when my stepdad was living in Los Angeles, or the Los Angeles area, in the 70s and 80s, they would sometimes have what were called smog days, where the industrial pollution in the city got so bad that they had to stop going to school. They had to stay inside. And I think that's actually pretty weird. I am not a proponent of industrial pollution. I believe that left to their own devices, without any regulation, companies and factories would pollute the earth. That's a given. I do agree that. See, I'm a moderate when it comes to action on climate. I believe that there is a problem with today's climate. I do believe humans actually are causing climate change. But I think that our response to climate change should be more scientific. We should be less we should pass laws less based on political willpower and less based on gut feeling, and more based on technological research and advancement. So if the government really is worried about carbon dioxide production, what they can do is set up carbon scrubber plants. Like, I don't know, I don't understand why that's not an option. You know, like, if we scrub the, I don't know, I'm not an expert in this field, but I think that the human mind can figure this out. That if we gather the top minds on of the field, of climate and of chemistry and of technology and engineering, we can figure out a solution. I think a good solution for the sulfur output of coal-based power plants. So how the U.S. government solved sulfur output from U.S. power plants is that they had these things called emission credits, or I think they're called they're called emission credits. So what happens is the government passes out these emission credits to various power plants, and if they produced less emissions than they had credits for, they got to keep those credits and sell the credits to power plants who emitted more. So if you emit more sulfur than you have the credits for, you have to buy credits off of other power plants. And so it incentivized people to emit less pollution because they could actually profit from that. So they could literally make a lot of money by not emitting pollution because they had extra emission credits to sell to other power plants. And if you emit, it was, I think it was a good hijacking of the profit motive. While I do think it was a little heavy-handed, I think that this kind of thing, where instead of banning all emissions and using government force to stop these companies from emitting various fossil fuel stuff, then figure out a way to hijack them and make it so that these companies can profit by reducing emissions. I think that was a genius thought. And the funny thing is that the good ending to the story is that these carbon credits, I think they were called carbon credits or sulfur credits, or these emissions credits, originally they sold for like $1,000 each. Like each emission credit sold for like $1,000 when the program was first initiated. But the funny thing is, today these emission credits go for less than $1. They saw 1,000% decrease in value because all these companies started cutting their emissions, and they didn't need to buy the emission credits off of other people. I think that's a success. You hijack the free market. I think that the most powerful driving force in the human psyche is profit motive. Well, there is, actually, the most reliable driver, I believe that the most reliable driver of progress in any direction is profit motive. And it doesn't matter what kind of government system you have. Profit can mean a million different things, but if you want someone to do something, pay them. Or figure out a way to let them get paid for what they do. I think that's what those emission credits teach us, is that the best way to make something happen, instead of banning something, or instead of using heavy-handed force in order to stop an activity or encourage an activity, you figure out a way to let people make money off of it. And then people will, in their ingenious ways, because there's so many ways to be smart about earning money. If there's money involved, we start to think. If there's money involved, we really put our nose to the grind wheel. The possibility of earning money and the possibility of losing money, that puts our nose to the grind wheel. Now, I have a theory. Egalitarian societies can exist if the social group is less than the magic number of 140 or 210. I can't remember which, but they did studies. They said that there is a number around 200 people where everyone knows everyone else, and interpersonal connections are good enough to sustain social behavior. But once you get past that 200 mark, you have to have other systems in place to encourage people to play nice with each other. When your group is small enough, you can do the egalitarian thing. You can have people working for the betterment of their group, purely for the betterment of their group, because they know everyone. They're related to everyone. They're a big group of people who know each other. But if you start getting into bigger groups, you have to have external forces. And I think that that's the reason why these bush people, the natives, the hunter-gatherers, that's why their lifestyle seems so egalitarian, is because their groups are small enough to the point where everyone knows everyone else, and their sense of honor, their sense of shame, their sense of community, so their sense of kindness, it's all wrapped up in the fact that everyone knows everyone else. Everyone's at least an acquaintance or a friend or an enemy, and we know how to deal with them. But if there's 10,000, even a small town in America, 10,000 people, we can't know everyone that's there. We can't really care about everyone in that town, and so we need external pressures. And there's 4 ways to motivate people to do something: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Those are the 4 ways to motivate people. You cannot motivate someone to do something without utilizing one of these 4 motivation methods. There's absolutely no way to motivate people to do things. So, doing it for a sense of community and love. That is positive reinforcement. That means that if you do it for a sense of community, but the problem is, the less that community matters to you, the less the degree of reinforcement will matter to you. So, if you're living in a big city and you're expected to do your job simply because it contributes to the economy or it contributes to Big Brother, you're not going to get that level of motivation. And so, in systems that do not condone the profit motive, they have to figure out alternative ways to motivate people to work. Because you have to motivate someone to work. People do not work when they are not motivated. Now, self-motivation is a thing. People can work for their own self-motivation. They can motivate themselves to do something, but it's still motivation. So, when you design a system that cuts out the profit motive, you've cut off your biggest motivator. It is a very efficient motivator. A, making money. B, the fear of losing money. You have double duty. There's a double duty kind of thing. You need the money, you want the money. And so these guys, the workers, everyone in the entire society is working for profit motive. And if you think that's bad, I do understand why people think the profit motive is impure. Why people believe that greed, I guess you could call it greed, but the need for continuous profits is bad for society. But in my understanding of human psychology, profit is the number one way to motivate someone to do something for a good that is greater than he understands. So, like I said, if you're in a small band of hunter-gatherers, or if you're in a tribal setting and you know everyone and everyone knows you, honor and love and friendship and duty is good enough to get you to do what you need to do. But once you start living in a world where you see thousands of strangers every day passing by on the street, you aren't going to sacrifice for someone you don't know, who you've never seen before, who you don't even know if they'd sacrifice for you. You aren't going to make sacrifices. Let's set up a scenario. Someone wants you to do something. Someone has a job opening. Let's say that an owner of a restaurant wants a job, wants someone to do their job. They have an opening for a server. Now, what they can do is they can tell their friend, or they can tell their loved ones, like they have a brother, and they say, hey bro, come here and help me with this restaurant. And it's very likely that if they have a good relationship with their brother will drop what they're doing and come work at the restaurant whether or not they get paid. Being paid is not the main reason why this brother is working at the restaurant with his sibling. He's working at the restaurant with his sibling because he cares about his sibling. Now let's take that a step further. Let's say that you have a job, you have a need for someone to do something, and it's not fun. It's a grueling job. It's a job that no one would do voluntarily unless they had a reason to. Like say digging ditches. You need someone to dig a ditch around your restaurant for one reason or another. And you see a guy on the street. You see a guy on the street and you say, "Hey you, I need you to dig me a ditch around the restaurant. And your only reward is going to be my pleasure or I'm going to tell you you're cool." And the guy's like, "No, of course not. I don't know who you are." But if you walk up to the same guy and say, "I'll give you $100 if you do this, or $1,000 if you do this," they'll go, "Hell yeah." You see? Profit motive. And the bigger the profits and the bigger the potential losses, the more careful people are. So I think that these big fat cats, the people, the owner class that detractors love to lampoon because of their immense wealth. Well, yeah. I don't know. They could have gotten their wealth through some insidious means, or they could have done it like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates and worked from their garage and found a product that people really enjoyed and were willing to pay a lot of money for. You know, it's hard to separate the two. But the thing about American society is that the vast majority of rich people, you know what? Why don't you do your own research on this? But it's my impression that the vast majority of rich people in America gain their riches by doing something special, by providing a huge boon to society. For example, Amazon, okay? Jeff Bezos owns Amazon. I don't know how the history of Amazon happened, but I'm totally okay with Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. I don't know, did he create Amazon? I don't know. Whoever created Amazon, they provide a very essential service, and I'm willing to have them be rich because that's their reward. That's the reward for winning, you know. And here's my final argument. This is the logical argument I've built up for the existence of rich people. So, do you believe that people have differing skill levels? Okay, you do. Do you believe that people of differing skill levels in a single subject should be paid differently according to the skill with which they perform their duties? Yes, that's why we pay surgeons the big bucks. Do you agree that we should pay surgeons more than we pay a nurse? You have to agree with that, because it's anyone who disagrees with that would be like putting themselves in danger if they ever needed a heart transplant. Okay, so do you agree that some skills are intangible? That some skills cannot be properly measured, or some skills are intangible? Okay? And do you believe that it is possible to be very skilled at something intangible? Okay, so what happens if someone has an intangible skill that they are very good at, say, charisma? Like Steve Jobs. Super charismatic dude. Drive is a skill. Charisma is a skill. Drive is a skill. Handling money is a skill. Things like that should be compensated, because you've just agreed that if someone is skilled at something, they should be compensated with how much they add to society. And the punchline here is that handling money, handling finances is a very, very difficult skill. And so that's my justification for the existence of people who are very rich, is that they have a skill, like they have the skill to make money. They have a skill, and that skill is making money. You can't like say, I don't know, that's my argument. I'll probably flesh it out later. But thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next Thursday.